Wow. Sometimes. Apparently my boobs are showing up today. Where was that? Are we good? Are we good? Hello and welcome to the Fat Squirrel Speaks. Today is Thursday, May 4th. Is it the May 4th? I'm doing the May 4th Be With You. I didn't even realize it. I'm not a Star Wars fan. So I couldn't even remember what it was called. Star Trek all the way, man. All the way. I'm Amy Beth, also known as the Fat Squirrel on Ravelry and the Fat SQRRL on Instagram. Welcome over. Change of scenery. We've gone to the spring summer quilt. I will try to remember to put the name of that quilt in because it is actually designed by Rebecca Danger, who does a lot of knitwear design as well for little stuffies and things. So I'll put that in the maybe the here-ish. Okay. Yeah, this week's episode is gonna have a lot of stuff. It's gonna have some knitting. It's gonna have some book talk. It's gonna have some screen printing talk. It's gonna have some FO wrap up. It's gonna have a little bit of quilty sewing. It's gonna have a candy recommendation, which I'm just gonna tell you about right now because it's right here. And what's up? I don't know what it is about this time of year, but I love a hard candy and cold water. Are you with me? These are great. This is Cavendish and Harvey pink grapefruit drops. The sour lemon are actually to even maybe more favorite, but these are really quite good. I don't know. I've not tried in many of the other. I think I've tried like the mixed fruit ones and they were fine, but like I am a sour person. So, and they have like the best texture. They're so smooth. And there's like, I'll just show you. Hey, they're covered in a little bit of powdered sugar, which I don't know, it's just enjoyable. But like, can you tell? Can you tell that there's like a divot in here? Like a little oof, and it's like the most lovely mouthfeel. I don't know, I do not own stock. I am not sponsored by. I'm sponsored by you. That's right. Patrons of the podcast. Thank you very much. If you'd like to find out more information about how to keep this nonsense going, you can find it in the drop-down bar. But in the meantime, I mean, I guess if you would like to support me, candy makers of the world. But these are so good. They're delicious. Highly recommend. So okay, now it doesn't have any more candy recommendations. That was it. But yeah, so like, let's get into it. Right? Shenanigans in my mailbox. That's not even a segment, but it is for now. I just wanted to say quickly, my lovely friend Corey I Rock Knits. She's a pattern designer. She is a YouTube person. What do we call ourselves? Are we vloggers? I don't know. She does the YouTubes. She does classes, etc., etc. Several years back, she made a collection of patterns that were like wearables, that were graphic, like that were words, that were graphic words, were like letterpress print, like letterpress garments. And she has also recently put out a pillow. So this one is called Knitworks Pillow Sachet by Corey Eichelberger, I Rock Knits Designs. And she sent me one, which was just so lovely. And it's such a lovely bookend too, because when my kiddo was going to kindergarten the first day, Corey sent me a bamboo plant. I confess it is dead. I'm sorry. But its memory lives on. And then this is coming just as my kiddo is graduating from high school and going into college next year. So isn't that fresh? Some of you have known me for like that whole time. I have known you for that whole time. How crazy is that? I just got the like Facebook memories. I'm not a huge Facebook person, but like I just go and like check on like my Central Indianapolis Bicycle Association, my All Bodies on Bikes, my Hoosier Hikers. You know, I gotta go check on those things. And so it did give me the like bloop bloop doop from a memory that was like right after I got laid off from my like 9-to-5 gig 13 years ago. And now I do this. Like, what? So thanks for being with me. I think I started the podcast very shortly after I got late, like within like a year I started the podcast. So thanks for being with me. Some of you have been with me the whole dang time. Bless your hearts. Bless your hearts, yo. You've seen me through many a haircut, many a backdrop. It's been wild. But anyways, I just wanted to say a thank you. And then again, to let you know, this is just so fun. Again, if you're looking for like, I gotta be honest with you, I've never knitted a teacher gifts. I've never, but I know some of you do. Some of you are saints. But like so fun for that kind of thing. And just a fun thing to do. Like, it's just fun to knit something that is not like, doesn't have the pressure associated with like it needing to fit someone or it needing to be styled or it needing, you don't even need to have a bra to show people your lovely knitted thing, which I do greatly appreciate. Just saying. Oh my goodness. But did we have other shenanigans? I don't think we've had any shenanigans, except I did mention we've had like a college acceptance and we've pushed the button on it for next year. I don't want to give out details because like that's ultimately not my most ownership of businessiness. But you know what I mean. Like that's not in my realm of divulgence. But hooray, hooray. Very exciting. And then what else? Oh, the big shenanigans. That's right. That's what we did. That's what I did. Some of you made pre-order, or some of you purchased my rabbit bags, or my poppies bags. And so that was a big part of my shenanigans over the last couple of weeks. I was so lucky. My mom and her husband offered to help me sew. So I got everything prepped and got zippers and everything, and took like a big chunk. I didn't get all of them down to finish, but like we made a big dent in it. So that was really, I just want to say thank you to them. It was really helpful to have that like push to get it done and like to get it done in, you know, a fun way. And I got to go to Jungle Gyms, which is always exciting. If you don't know what Jungle Gyms is, it's a Cincinnati institution. It is an international grocery store. There used to only be one, and it was on the north side. Let me just discuss. As soon as I moved out of Cincinnati, they put one like 4 miles from where I lived. Not even 4 miles. Probably 2 miles. It feels like 8 miles because of the traffic, but it's probably like 1.5 miles. Can you even believe? It's like a Wonderland grocery store. There are like automatronic, is that a word anymore? There are robot tea things. Not so much at the Eastgate one though, now that I think about it. That was maybe mostly at the original location, but whatever. It's like a food wonderland. Like all of the things that you did not know you even needed. All of the like wild produce. They had sumos still. Nobody else has sumos around here, and they were good. So that was delightful. There's like all of the, so many cheese options. You could literally go and just, they have like a whole like lovely patisserie. I've never actually purchased anything because I feel like I would not know how to even purchase like a thing. You know what I mean? Because it's not like I go there regularly. So when I look at the case, I'm like, I need 17 things, which is really not particularly reasonable. Financially, if nothing else. But anyways, that was delightful. I got to visit. I got some work done. Gorgeousness all around. I think that's kind of all. That doesn't sound like a lot, but my life is kind of small, and that's really okay. I've been in a place where I really need to remind myself of that a lot lately. I don't know if I'm having like a midlife crisis. I'm about to turn 45, and I've just been having a lot of, am I in the right place? Am I doing what I should be doing? Which is that's actually the answer, right? Like there's no should be. There's no should be. Like I should not worry about that because it's like it's like my idea of what I should be doing from other, not from like a specific person, but just like from the universe, you know, or from the like culture, the media. And so there's been a lot of like Anyway, I've just been having a moment. So it's good to be reminded that should do is not the same thing. And like, it is okay to not do what I thought I should be doing when I was like 25, right? Like, but sometimes it's hard to remember that. Like, you know, you're paying bills and you're like, where did all of the dollars go? And like, you're just like looking around like, is anybody else? Am I the only one? Like, what are we doing wrong? Like, it feels like there's like some sort of like, there's like some secret magic that I don't know about or so. I don't, you know what I mean? Like, I'm just like, are we doing things right? Is this okay? So if you're feeling like that, like, I am there with you, and I'm struggling with it as well. Oy vey. That is not to like garner your sympathy. It's just like to be like, really like, that is just an empathetic moment. Like, we can be together in this like, what? Right? I don't know. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what I should do. But yeah, so, okay, let's just talk about this dark moment. Which is ironic because I was just listening to Don't Worry, Be Happy before we started. Have you heard that song in like 8 million years? I'm not gonna lie, like, while I don't agree with the sentiment of the song as a whole, it is like a nice round sound pleasantness, and I can get behind that quite a lot. So yes, candy. Let's talk about printmaking class, right? Like, that's out of the ordinary. But I I wrapped up my second session of printmaking classes. So I took, last year I took a printing on fabric class at our Indianapolis Art Center. And then this year I took from the same instructor a screen printing class, which was about screen printing on paper. And then like an introductory, because that one I did like a screen printing for like a day in that other class. So then this was like 7 weeks of paper screen printing, and that's when I did like my sumo and stuff like that. And then I did another session which was reduction screen printing, and so that's just a different technique. It's a little bit more you're not like burning a stencil, so it's something you can do at home. Your basic, it's like a very kind of like sort of like painterly approach to screen printing, and it creates like a finite run. So that's one of the things about reduction printing. Like, most of I've heard of reduction printing is in like the linoleum or block printing side of things. And basically what happens is like you're layering your prints, right? You're getting like multiple colors, but you're only working from one block. So you print a block and then you carve away, like let's say you print yellow, and then you carve away and then you print again. And so like in places you will only have the yellow, the places that you like carved after you printed the yellow. And then the other places will now have, let's say, red on top of a yellow. So you may have like an oranginess or something like that. And then you can do that for layers and layers and layers. But one of the cool things about it is that it does create a finite number of prints. So if you have a reduction print and you run 20 of them, that's it. You can't go back and fix things. You can't go back and play with colors. Like, it is limited. And so that's like very scary to me, but also intriguing. And so, yeah, it's just like a totally different, and it's also like a really different process to like wrap your brain around, in terms of like how you're going to layer color, how that's going to work together, and all of that kind of stuff. So I ran the same print, or the same design, I guess you would say, the same design, in 2 different color ways. But here are my like fat aquatic babes, right? So that's one. And then here is another one, which is a little bit less contrast, which I was originally afraid that it didn't have enough, but now I actually really, this was kind of like my backup, or like my second run, or actually it was, the first one was my original, and then I was like, oh, I don't think that's gonna have enough contrast, I'm gonna switch it. And so I did something with a little bit more dilution on these like lower, these base layers, the lightest color layer, because that's what you print first. And then like all the way to the darkest color, which is the last thing you print. So yeah, but I like actually, I kind of dig the lower contrast one and how it turned out, but it's all about like just playing with stuff. And like a lot of them did not, like a lot of them, my registration is like definitely wonky, right? Like you can see that, well, you may not be able to tell it from here, but like, there's a little bit that's printed outside the edge because again, I didn't have them like lined up perfectly. But I'm okay with that. Some of them are more exaggerated than that even, but it was here's one that's like a little bit more clear that like there, well, you can really tell it in person. But it was a really good experience. Like I do not consider myself a fine artist by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, I have a lot of issues with that term. Like it definitely is like a hot, like when people differentiate between fine art and craft, like I understand, but also I really don't like it. Because when it is differentiated, it is always to be so dismissive of craft. It is to, it is to hold above. You know what I mean? It is to push down. It is, again, it is a term made to create a gulf. And I understand, like, I understand that I am not Georgia O'Keeffe. Do you know what I mean? Like, I understand that there is a difference in like what I am creating. And I don't want to imply in any way that I think that the quality of what I produce is on the same level. But I also think it's a really arbitrary decision that is pretty much made by wealthy, just by wealth. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, and it just, I don't know, it just really grates on me. Because again, it's often used especially to dismiss women's work, and just dismiss work of people of color. Like that is like because again, like if somehow you are a subsistence creator, right? Like you are creating to make ends meet. You are creating as a way to like move through life with groceries. Then that is craft, right? Like that's, and again, to like create something that is useful is dismissive as craft. Like it's just, I don't know, maybe I just need to have like an actual, like a, not a class, but you know what I mean? Like maybe I just need to, like maybe I need to be pointed in the right direction. Do you know where the direction is? I should look at this, to look at this argument from a different perspective. But as it is, I tell you, it just really like, it just really grates on me. And again, it's not because like I have this idea of the what I create is so great. If anything, it's the opposite. Like I'm constantly like, oh my gosh, you know. But like especially when I see other people's work like differentiated as craft versus art, it's like really, I don't like it. I don't like it. And of course, I'm probably preaching in many ways to the choir, right? Like because many of you are crafters. But still, I know that some of you are work in other spheres, and so you probably have better crossover than I do to understand like why, again, like who gets to make that decision? Like it feels like it's really arbitrary and pretty cruddy usually. And one of the things I really liked, there was a fairly recent book that came out on printmaking. She is an English printmaker. I have it on in the digital version. It's called Lino Cut by, sorry, just one moment while it loads. It's called Lino Cut. It's by Sam Marshall. Oh my gosh, here she is with her pup. Oh man, how cute, right? But I love her style. I love her aesthetic. And she has this really beautiful section where she talks about defining yourself as a printmaker. And like a printmaker is a person who makes prints. And yet, like for for me, for example, to say that I'm a printmaker feels like I'm stepping way beyond my bounds. And I ultimately do believe I am stepping above, I do believe I'm stepping beyond my bounds in many ways, if I were to say that. But at the same time, like, why do I feel that? Like, why do I need to, like, let's unpack why I feel that way. Like, why do I feel like I can't define myself however I want to define myself? So anyway, it was just a really, like, I enjoyed the book in general. Like, I liked her different techniques, and I really like her aesthetic. But that part was really like, oh, like it gave me a pause, as they say. I was trying to see, I thought for sure I had like highlighted it, but apparently I don't understand how anything works. And also, I'm hungry. Just so you know. But so yeah, those are my prints, and I'm actually really pleased with them. Again, I don't consider myself to be, especially, like, if I were going to say that I fall into some sort of art field, I feel like I am much more comfortable with, I guess what we would normally call, like, or what I was taught to call graphic arts, like more, again, like not the painterly, not the like purely creative. I tend to, just like knitting, I like that sonnet structure to work within, right? Like I feel more comfortable having boundaries that I understand and systems that I understand how to work within, rather than that kind of like more painterly or that kind of technique. But anyway, so it was really good. It was good. It was good to get myself beyond a comfort zone. It was good to, it's always good to do something not well, right? Like, it's just a good thing to be forced to do things not well, right? Like, I'm inspired to do fiber things not well because I'm more comfortable with my overall knowledge and expertise in the area. So like, to learn a new technique or to learn about a new fiber or something like that, it feels, even though it's new, it doesn't feel like a totally like alien environment. It doesn't feel as intimidating. Whereas something like this definitely has more of that feel to it. What else was I going to say? But there was something else. So anyway, it's good to be reminded that like, you just have to do things and they're not great. Like, you have to do them a lot before they get even remotely okay. And again, it's just helpful to be reminded of that, because I think it's so easy to get into that mind trap of like, oh, if I don't do this well instantly, I'm not good at it, or like, oh, this isn't for me. When that just like is truncating a lot of experiences that I could have. And also I wanted to talk a little bit also about like monetizing things, right? Like, I see both sides of this coin, right? Like, I see a lot of people saying like, oh, you like to knit, well, why don't you make a living from that? Or like, why don't you sell this? Or why don't you do this or that? And we all know those arguments, right? Like, we all know why that doesn't work for most people. But I also see that beyond that, about like a kind of pushback against monetizing things, like, right? Like I don't need to monetize this. I can just enjoy it. For example, like, I don't think anybody there are some people who play golf professionally get paid for it, but you know what I mean? Like, the vast majority of people that enjoy golf are not thinking about monetizing that in some way. And so, like, I understand both sides of that coin, but I also just want to put a little extra note on one side of that coin. And that is that I understand applauding or encouraging people to not monetize things. But that doesn't make what they're doing any more or less important, right? Like, because sometimes like we have to monetize things, especially in this economy. Like, I feel pressure to monetize things in terms of, not because I'm trying to accrue some sort of like lordly wealth, but like literally just to like get by, like to get to the next month, or to like take a camping vacation, or, what have you. So I don't know. I feel like again, much like the like craft versus fine art, like there's so much classism that's intertwined in both of those things. And while I would never push somebody to monetize say something they enjoy just for the sake of it, like, right, just to have money for no reason. I also just want to make sure that we're all remembering that some people are monetizing things because they literally need to. And that's not really necessarily a choice that they're making. Like that's something that they're being pushed into by economic reality. So just wanted to pop that in. Because that's something I've been seeing lately. And like, I get the push back against like, no, I don't want to monetize my things that I enjoy. And like, yes, that's wonderful. But I think sometimes that the like message underneath of that is that if you are monetizing the things you enjoy, that somehow that's diluting what, dirtying, this making less, right, of your thing that you enjoy if you monetize it somehow. And that I do think is something that really we need to just make sure we're checking in our brains as we react to things like that. Just a thought from a middle-aged fat white lady. What else? Oh, because that was the reason. One of the reasons I took this printmaking class was, or this screen printing class was because, again, I was like, okay, I can screen print on fabric, and there's a reason. There's a, there's like an excuse. Excuse is not the right word, but like, again, I can take this class because I can do something with it for my business or what have you. And so when I took this second round, this more painterly round, I was really like, oh, well, I'm just going to like take it and use the studio time because the instructor said that was fine. But then I like actually enjoyed this other thing that, that was not related to my business in some way. And so, I don't know, that's the reason that came up. Oh my gosh, do you have a snack? Why didn't I eat before we started talking? It's gonna be okay, I'm gonna power through. There's a sumo in there, I can see it. It's my last one. It's gonna be my last one of the year. I can see it. Okay, so that's that. Let's talk about, a little bit of quilting, just very briefly. I just started a new little project. I had some like Heather Frost prints, some like brighter prints that are not normally, not that I'm not drawn to them because I really am, but that I just have not worked with. I guess that's the way I should say it. And so I was trying to figure out like what to do with them. I always love flying geese and I love the economy blocks. We talked about that a little bit, right? Like I showed you that little economy block I had made. But I really had this reality of like that economy block, like if I make that, because I want to make it for like a springy summer quilt for myself, for my bed, it's going to take like a gabillion of those. And I was like, you know what? I don't know that I'm in the place to take on a project that is going to be that time consuming right now. Because I sew for a living, I don't always want to sew for enjoyment, right? And like I feel like for quilting, I am definitely a product crafter versus a process crafter. Like it's not that I don't like the quilting part, but again, I think because it's so close to what I do a lot of in a grindy way, it just doesn't, it's not as pleasant. And also it's one of those things that takes you away from, you have to like, again, it's like a space, it's like cleaning up, it's getting things out, it's da, 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 da. So, I was like, you know what? I don't think I really want to commit to something that time consuming in this way or for this project. So what I'm actually going to do instead is this like fairly basic thing. This is the Maggie Pearl pattern. It's a free pattern by Penelope Handmade. She has a lot of really lovely quilt patterns that I like quite a lot. And it's just like, what is this? It's like a 28 patch. But I really enjoy that it's like these blocks of a lighter and a darker. I like that they are with rectangles versus like a square, which is normally which is like a 9 patch or a 16 patch. I really enjoy that. It's strip pieced, So that means it's very straightforward in how you create it. I'm going to show you this because it's free. I don't think this is an issue. So you can use like a jelly roll, or you can just cut 2.5-inch strips, and you're just like doing this, right? You're sewing 4 strips together, and then you're cutting them into little rectangles, and then just reassembling them, right? Just all flip-flopping them so that you get this. So I like that it's doing just this one thing, and that you can get done with a block or like a grouping of colors, right? So like one grouping of, if you're doing a fat quarter, I only brought 2, but there's, each fat quarter makes like 3 blocks essentially. And so like you get that sense of accomplishment of like, okay, I have like done these and now I can do the next one or put it on hold or what have you. And like, you don't have to cut the whole thing at once. You don't have to piece like each little individual segment and then reassemble segments. Like, anyway, it's just more manageable. Okay. It's more manageable. Like you can just put these in the bin and just put it on hold. And then you get the next fat quarters out and cut them and piece them. And it's speedy, but satisfying. Anyway, so I'm just really enjoying this. So they'll be placed like this. Now, the only thing is, I will confess, directional prints are going to bother me because the way it's cut, if you're doing yardage, it's, even a fat quarter or even jelly rolls would be cut that way, but it's cut so the up-down print is going to be going sideways. So I think I'm going to flip-flop it and do it because it's just going to make me, I think it's going to make me a little bit bananas to have the pictorial, the images be oriented sideways versus, and so like all that means is instead of having a width of fabric that's 22, I'll have it that's 18 because it's like a half yard. But it does make it a little bit tighter. Like you don't have that little extra bit of like room to wiggle. So I'm gonna do the next 2 fat quarters experimentally the other way, so that again, like instead of these flowers going this way, they would go this way. I haven't decided. We'll see. I might just be like, get over it. But I'm afraid if I do that, I'll be like, because some of the prints are like this, like they're Heather Ross. So they're like noticeably horizontally versus vertically oriented. So yeah, we'll see. But I'm pretty pleased with how this looks. Like I think it's going to be really cute. And again, I really like that, the difference of that layout of the rectangles versus the squares and having them. And also if you wanted to, like clearly if the horizontal versus vertical bugged you, you could orient them this way, instead of this way. But I really like the way they look oriented this way. So that's part of the charm of this layout, I think. Okay, so that's that. So yeah, that's like a little project I'm going to be working on. And then let's talk about, we'll talk about knitting, and then I'll talk about knitting book. So I'm wearing a finished object, yo! Bazam! I'll put a little bit of a video of me wearing it here. So I have a finished object. Huzzah! This is the Mystic Square by James Watts, and it was originally written for like a long color change yarn, Noro specifically. The yarn I used is called Lang Camille, and it comes in a lot of really fun colorways. My yarn store had it on clearance, and I'm kind of tempted to go get another color because like they were all really enjoyable colorways. And now that I've knit this project, it was super fun to knit. So this yarn is 50% cotton, 30% acrylic, 20% rayon. It's 100 grams for 230 yards. My bust measurement is 49, and I used exactly 4 skeins, again, plus a little bit for the, I haven't told you that yet. I'll tell you that in a minute. plus a little bit for the bind off because I literally ran out. And I couldn't find, I know that I made a swatch, but I couldn't find it because I lost this quilt earlier today. I couldn't find it anywhere. Like I lost a whole quilt. So like, hello, I'm a mess. So this pattern was originally written for Nora or similar yarns, and it goes from a size to fit bust measurement of 30 to 62 inches. And I was trying to remember what weight those Noras are. They're worsted, right? Anyway, worsted DKE. This yarn is listed as a worsted, and it's like one of those weird kind of like ribbon structures. Like it's not flat, it's like a flat I-cord essentially. So yeah, it was really, I really enjoyed the greens in this yarn. Like I picked it because of this like chartreusey, goldy kind of main color, but some of the greens are like the most wonderful, just like milky, oceany kind of color. It's just like Lake Erie plus milk or something. Like it's just really nice when I was knitting on it. It was just really, I guess I'm often beyond a place of being entranced by color changes in yarns. Like, you know, I'm just dead inside. But this was really pleasant. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about things I did differently. So one of the main things I did differently, I'll show you in a close-up here, is that as the pattern is written, when you are applying the rectangles, so right, it's like a log cabin. After you knit your main square, you're like applying rectangles. And as it's written, you knit you work the first stitch or this joining stitch on each row, okay? And what I did instead was I slipped it on one row and then joined it as a purl two together. So I just wanted to show you a little bit of the close-up of the applied edging join. So here is one, and here is another, and again, that's using the slip stitch technique versus the knitting the first stitch of every row. It's probably mostly just like an individual preference, but I do like how tidy it looks with that slip stitch. I don't always slip the first stitch of every row, like that's not normally what I do, but when I'm doing these applied edgings, I do like the way it looks. I started doing that on a Shayna Lyons design, probably recalibrate, or maybe, I don't know, another one, well, it was not recalibrate. But I just really like how tidy it looks, and it kind of gives the edge a little bit of depth too, which I appreciate. More so when you are going across the stitches versus along the vertical. So horizontally versus vertically. Vertically, this seam really kind of just flattens out totally, but horizontally you do get a little bit more texture. Now, I don't know, that may be lessened if you did do the, knit every row. But I actually do like the way it looks. I think it just, especially this, where that's such a big part of the design element. And then I just wanted to show you too, like this is the back. And so you do see there's a little bit more pooling than there was on the front where I did alternate skeins. I mean, it's not like egregious or anything, but especially since this is like right across my breast tissue, it's just a little bit more noticeable to me, maybe even. And then the collar just kind of rolls. It's not finished, or at least I didn't finish it. Maybe it is. I don't think it's finished in the pattern, but either way, I didn't have enough yarn. So you can see, here's my contrasting yarn for my last little bit of cast off. I even like pulled yarn from tails and still didn't have enough. So, and I couldn't find my test swatch. So, and then here's another thing you can't see when it's on my body, but you can see the angle of my sleeve increases. That's not written into the pattern. That's just a modification for my specific biceps. And like, again, how I carry the circumference around my armpit is not exactly big, but the tissue, the adipose tissue that is underneath of my arm. And this accommodates it, especially in a short sleeve. I hate feeling like I'm tugging at that or that it's like binding up around my arm. So I'm really pleased so far with how these feel and how they are functioning as I wear the garment. So that is one of the big things that I did differently. Okay. So another thing that I did differently, as you saw earlier in the show, I have a lot of adipose tissue in the front, right? So I have a lot of breast tissue for my shoulder width. And so I love cropped sweaters or cropped tops, but I need a little bit extra length over my boobs. Okay. So not necessarily just even extra width, but even when there's like a lot of positive ease and like that the pulling across the bust is not an issue, I need the fabric to go over my boobs, because often what will happen is like something that is a cropped length, for example, in the back will really ride up in the front and like kind of even maybe approach like to the bra line. And it's and again, everything is to your personal taste, right? But it ends up not giving the proportion that I like. Like I love really high-waisted pants with a crop top. I think it's super fun. I really enjoy wearing it. It just makes me feel fun and different. And like, again, it's one of the beautiful things about making your clothes as a fat person is that like, it does feel like for the first time in my life, I'm a 45-year-old woman. It feels like within the last 4 years is probably the first time in my life I've ever felt like I was actually expressing myself through my clothing, because there were not options for me to do that when I was buying ready to wear. So I like that proportion. And if I don't give myself extra fabric to go over my boobs, it just doesn't give me the same look that I like. So what I did in this case was I knit the back piece first, or they're the same in the pattern. So I knit one piece first. So that was wonderful, right? Like it gave me like a foundation to be like, okay, this is what I think I need to change. Because lots of times when there's different construction techniques, it is a lot more challenging to figure out how to modify them to fit, because it's not just like your standard thing where I'm like, oh, I know I need to make this many extra raglan increases over this period of time. But being able to do that back piece was what became the back piece first was really great, because it gave me an indication of like, okay, these are places I think that I can make some changes that are going to work a little bit better for my body, but I'm not going to like rip everything out. So one thing I did is I had some color pooling on the main square. And so for this front, I just alternated skeins just for the first square, because it's like the biggest piece. So that's one thing I did. Another thing I did was add short rows into this main square. And like however many you need is going to depend on how much breast tissue you have, or what your final look is. Like, do you want the sweater to ride up in the front and give that like high-low hem? Or do you want it to do you want a more symmetrical hem around your body? So I added, and I didn't do them like, it doesn't have to be scientific, right? You could just do it till you feel right. That's what my mom cooked, right? You'd ask her how you make biscuits, and she'd say, well, you put the flour in there, but how much do you need? Well, just do it till it feels right. You just add enough buttermilk till it feels right. And so I apologize, but that's what you do. If you have a lot of boobs, that you probably need a lot more extra short rows. So add some in, You can also put the back piece on your front piece and be like, okay, this is like 3 inches shorter than I want it to be. So I'm going to add in 3 inches somewhere. I added mine in the main square and also on the bottom rectangle. But that's how you can figure out like how much you need to add in. And I just did my short rows, made sure I was beyond my nipple point. So like the apex of my breast, better word. Beyond, like, did not want to be increasing or short row wrapping in the apex, because it just like your eye can go there. I don't think it would be such a difference with this kind of like busy yarn, but still, it's just a good habit to be in. So I just did my short rows like, out here. I did them lower on the rectangle as much as I could, but also this rectangle is literally like all it's all the breast tissue. So like you can't exactly only do them underneath, which is what you typically would do when you're adding short rows or shaping, is you would usually do it underneath your breast because it's less noticeable. But in this case, you don't have as much room to work those in. So you don't really notice it. And so that is something I did different. Then I added, so the bottom row is knit this, like you're knitting a short, like you're knitting this way across. So you'll need to do short rows on that very bottom square. I say row, that very bottom rectangle. You can just do some increases. And so, right, like if you just need a little bit of extra room, like if you just need like another 1/2 inch or something, you don't need to even worry about doing short rows up here. You just add a little bit of extra on that bottom rectangle just to give you a little bit of a flatter hem if that's what you're looking for. I did both. Other things I did differently. I decided that it was going to come up too high on my neck, so I did do a few more decreases for the collar, which I'm glad I did, because when I flip it around, like when I was like, well, did I make any difference really? Well, all these different things I did, and it did. It wants to sit on my shoulders differently. It's not necessarily that the fit is bad or anything like that, but it wants to sit on my shoulders in a way that's kind of, it's not a huge issue because it's anchored to my body pretty securely. If it had a bunch of ease, I think that would be a problem because it would feel like it was like riding back and choking me. But because it is anchored to several points on my body through the fit, it does not move around a lot, so it's not as much of it. It would not be as much of an issue. But I do know that I just like to have a little bit more breathing room. So I just did like an extra 3 decreases. Just brought it down a tiny bit more. And then as I showed you in the little video about the, how the applied edging looks, I did also add some increases into the bicep, or this is not even your bicep, but your underneath, your fat arm, your wings. You gotta let your wings breathe. You can't have them all bound up crazy in there. So I did add those decreases literally just right along the bottom of the sleeve. The last, I did them at like every 6 stitches, and I did 5 a row. Like did them every 4th row or something. But like, again, that's just like whatever your body needs. Don't be afraid, because like, you're not like on my body, part of the, like, you're not going to see that because it's like when my arm is down and I'm functioning like a normal person, like all those increases are underneath of my arm. You're probably not going to see that, or if you do, then you owe me money or something. I don't know, but we can discuss that later. So it's not at all noticeable or anything like that. It's only noticeable when you lay the sweater flat that there's like a little dip there. It's fine. It's fine. So yeah. Yeah, okay, those are all, those are all the things, right? Yeah, those are all the things. So that's my Mystic Square. I would love to make some more. Super fun. He's got other similar designs if you like the idea of a modular, or if you like the idea of using like long color changing or hand spun, but you don't necessarily like this specific design. A lot of his designs incorporate those techniques, and they're super fun. Ta-da! So that's my Mystic Square. What else? Okay, just making sure. Did that. Yes. Okay, so then the next thing I can talk about is I cast on and have knit the Good Bear. Just Good Bear, not the Good, just Good Bear. This is a pattern by Susan B. Anderson and is knit with with Barrett Wool Company's Wisconsin Woolen. And I mean, how cute is he? Right? Super fun. It's a sport weight yarn. I knit mine on US 1.5s, but that's because I always have to go down several needle sizes, especially toys. But he's really cute, right? Just like, so I did use safety eyes, but just embroidered his little face. I've got his pants, and I am currently working on his sweater. And then the pattern has a really cute like toboggan for him and a really cute like over sweater. So super enjoyable. Susan B. Anderson patterns, always I can recommend. It's knit in the round. There is no seaming. There's a little bit of pickup. So picking up, but just very small amount. She does a wonderful thing where she tells you in the pattern, you'll be doing purl bumps, like where you attach the arms, like where you pick up for the arms, where you pick up for the ears. You do some purl bumps so that it's really clear where you're going to put those items. She actually has you place the eyes as you're working. So there's never a question of like, oh, is that right? Is that the right place to have put those? Is that the right proportion? It's very, again, if you look at her patterns, if you look at Unravelry or look at her people who've worked on her patterns, there's a very good level of consistency of those finished projects, which to me is a good sign of a good pattern. So yes, so I'm working on those. So again, this is all in Wisconsin woolen. And the pattern, the colorways are as listed in the pattern. She did do kits for them, but I admit that I just had all the colors except this one because I have a problem. Super cute, super enjoyable. Oh my gosh. I'll also put this in. Cynthia Valet has her new compilation, her new book through Lanya. Guys, my brain's bad about holding on to stuff. Lanya magazine, and it's Mouche and Friends. And so I'm just going to do like a very brief little, like, just like, oh my gosh, look at these cute patterns right here. I just quickly wanted to look at some of the patterns from the Mouche and Friends collection that's been published by Lanya, but it's authored by Cynthia Valet, who I have made a couple of her patterns before, and they're really lovely. Very well written. All of them are in the round and seamless. I'm pretty confident. I mean, there might be a tiny bit of seaming, but they're primarily knitted in the round and seamless. They're very enjoyable to knit. And so I just wanted to look at a few of them because they are really cute. So this is available both as like a physical book. You can get it in the US at several different retailers. Or you can get the PDF version as well. And of course you can buy it from the publisher directly. But like, can we just discuss? Like, so the collection is named after Mouche the bear, but okay, I was going to try to save Nana, but I had to go to the Mouche. But do you see Nana the lady duck? Do you see her? She is so stinking cute. I bought this pattern collection, but I wanted to show it to you on Ravelry because I didn't want to have to try to like go through them without showing you like actual pattern information in the publication. But there are a lot more photos in the actual ebook or the physical book. But like, can we discuss the wolf? And like, they all have these accessories. Like, he's got his like Icelandic, yoked sweater and his little messenger bag. And she knits all of hers, from what I understand, she knits everything from the face down so that you always have the face of the stuffy while you're working, so that like its spirit kind of grows as you're working on it. But like Horatio the donkey, like, what is even happening? So wonderfully styled. Again, the photography is great. There are many more photographs in the ebook or in the book of each of the animals, and they could have them in different positioning, and like especially the Nana the lady duck, she's so darling in the publication because the yarn that they've used for her, you can't really tell it here. I'm not sure what it is. Okay, so it's not a yarn that I'm familiar with, but it has it's just got a really great color texture to it. But like, we have Hazel the squirrel, and do you love her jumper? Is it not the most ridiculous? And even look how cute her feet are. So cute. And Giorgio the cat. I didn't even mention Henry the orangutan. I have mixed feelings about him. I do think I'm going to make him, but I don't know. He's not my favorite design, but I do think he also has a lot of potential. So I'm excited to see what other people do with him and yarn choice, because I think on him, like, yarn choice is going to be a big deal. But like Billy the raccoon, do you see his pants? Are you even seeing his pants? Like, what is going on? But they're just darling as all get out. And like the little Augie the sheep, she has like a little stole with her like loopy yarnness on it. it. But anyway, so I just wanted to show it to you just because, again, I have finished this, or I'm working on this Susan B. Anderson bear, and it just, I mean, Forrest the Bison. I mean, I'm just going to look at all of them because they're all just so stinking cute. But again, I do really like the patterns I have knit from her in the past, so I don't have any hesitation about recommending the collection if you enjoy making small things. I think that most of hers are done on fingering weight yarn, so you're going to be looking at tiny needles. Of course, you can always make them with heavier weight yarn. You're just going to end up with a larger animal, and you may have to fudge if she tells you to knit for an inch versus, you may have to adjust that to your new size or your scaled up size. But they're really just super charming, and I thought, I mean, like, look at the diagonal pockets on the overalls. Like, that is just like, what? That's so cute. Anyway, okay, I'm so sorry. I would take it back. It looks like a lot of them are knit with either fingering or sport, and so you see like the orangutan is knit with fingering with a mohair, I'm assuming. But anyway, so I just wanted to show them to you because they are so charming, and I don't know, I hope maybe some of you will also enjoy knitting them, and if nothing else, just enjoying them. Okay, then really just briefly, I can't help but show you just a few pictures from the actual publication because it shows the animals together, and so you get a better sense that there is a varying scale amongst them. So I just wanted to just pop these in because, I mean, come on, right? And then like these guys. I mean, how sweet are they? But anyway, I won't show you any more because then we're getting into, I don't want to scroll too much with you, but I just thought they were just totally precious. Very enjoyable. Okay, what else am I knitting on? Okay, so then I'm playing with different summer ideas. The crazy like woven crocheted sweater from Pom Pom is on hold. I don't know, it's on hold. It's just not working out as well as I wanted to, and I don't want to think about it that much. So instead, I have this yarn. This is Oh Baby Organic by Lion Brand, and it is still available. This is the colorway Olive. I bought this last year, intending to make a Rift tee. But you know what? I actually just don't love cotton knit and stockinette. I'm just going to be honest with you. I'm not saying I'm never going to do it. I'm not going to say I won't do it tomorrow. I don't love knitting cotton, but that's beside the point. I also just don't love the way cotton yarns I have worked with up to this point look in knit stitch. I just don't like the way they look as much. Is it because there's not bloom? Is that because they don't fill in? I just don't love it. Okay, just don't love it. I won't say I won't change my mind tomorrow. Also, I just wanted a crochet project because I was all excited about that pom pom weft pattern, and then I was like all geared up to crochet something, and then it didn't work out. So I'm just gonna do a little sweater. I'm gonna do like a little crop top, short sleeve sweater, pretty much based on, or similar to Jacqueline Cieslak's Rift tee. Just like a boxy sweater, right? Like drop shoulder, easy peasy. Because crochet shaping I'm not as comfortable with. I mean, I definitely can. And this is not a hard stitch to do shaping in, but crochet stitches will have a right and wrong side. So you have to be careful if you're going to like do things in the round versus flat. It's not like knitting where you can not tell the difference. Like it does look different if you do a body of a sweater in the round, but do the sleeve flat. So I'm just going to do basic like rectangles. And also I just am enjoying that look right now. So also apparently I really always love this color. Hello. So it's just a very basic split V stitch. It's kind of just like, you just do two double crochets in the middle of two double crochets, and then you just keep doing that. There's no chains. It's like the edge is very easy to maintain. It's very clear what you're supposed to do. Yeah, so it's pretty basic. The only difference is like I did do more chains on the bottom. So instead of double crochet, 2 double crochets into like every other chain. It was every other chain and then every third chain, every other chain, every third chain. Because like my chain stitch to cast on is very tight. And I actually thought about doing like a ribbing on the bottom, but I just didn't love the way it looked. Like cotton yarn and ribbing is also not great for me. I don't love the way it looks. But I do love that technique of using a knitting crochet or knitting cast on, and again working some ribbing, and then this would be very easy to transform into the crochet. Do I have the sample still, or did I rip it out to start that? I probably ripped it out to start that. Oh my gosh, no, I did it for demonstration purposes because I have a podcast, okay? So this is what it looks like. It's not bad, right? I just kind of like the idea of, I mean, again, the ribbing is also pulling in, and you could just make it more stitches so it would be flatter. But yeah, I don't know. I just kind of liked the idea of the really basic bottom with just the chain cast foundation row. But yeah, this is a super easy technique. You just work your ribbing. And for example, in this one, I just double crocheted into each knit stitch because there's a loop there. You can crochet into it. And then that creates your foundation for your next row. So yeah. And I really prefer in many ways to cast on like that for crochet because it's a much more flexible cast on. It's something I'm more familiar with. I do not like trying to pick up from a chain to do the crochets. It's not my favorite. But I just did like the look of just the simple chain. And again, that might just be because I liked that it was flatter, squarer, less. So yeah, that's something I'm working on. And I guess that's it for yarny, crafty goodness. So the last thing we'll talk about, just, I say briefly. I finished reading Unraveling, which is a book by Peggy Ornstein. She is a journalist who was taught to knit. She's always knit. But this is her book where during the pandemic, she decided that she was going to do a sheep to sweater project. And she had knit, but she had not spun, she had not sheared, she had not dyed. All of those things were new. And she is a journalist, so it is in a more journalistic style, which I enjoyed. And one of the things I liked about it is I love nonfiction to just like not to like accrue knowledge because I'll forget it in like 10 minutes, but to spark interest in things, right? Like I love to read nonfiction and then just be, oh, that's fascinating. And I get really excited about stuff. And so this had a really great combination of that combined with this like cohesive structure of her process of learning these things. And again, not just learning them, but then like having an actual physical process that also could, you know, is the like foundational path for the book. And then around that foundational path, you get like all of this interesting history, all of this interesting science stuff, and then also just like her life narrative through this time. So her, you know, not like a day to day, but like again, her life is interwoven with this narrative, and it's everything from like COVID itself to wildfires. They're in California, and so I enjoyed how she was able to balance those three things in a way that I liked quite a lot. I will say that I had some like because like when she's learning to do things, she learns from experts. And I will confess, like as like I was like, well, what means she gets to do that way? Like, why does she get to learn from the expert person? Like, what? And I'm like, well, you know, A, everybody can do whatever they want. And B, she's monetizing this experience. But I did kind of have that reaction where I was just like, oh, who does she think she is? It's like, I just had to check that with myself. Like, okay, like settle down, yo. But I mean, that doesn't make me like the book any less, but it's just something that I had a reaction to. I don't think that happens anytime like somebody has a privilege that you don't have access to, or it happens frequently when somebody has a privilege that I don't have access to. Like, it just creates that like moment. But okay, so I enjoyed all the things. I did listen to an audiobook. I enjoyed the audiobook very much. I ended up getting the physical copy because there were things that I wanted to be able to refer back to. And I know that, so this is just a few of them, but like here are the things that got me excited about the book. That's how we should do it, right? Like, here are the things I was just like, and it doesn't mean that any of the rest of the book is any less valuable. It's just like, these are the things that stuck with me about like, oh, that's really exciting to me. Okay. Where's my other piece of paper? Do you see this nonsense? Piece of paper where I was going to tell you about this. Oh, there it is. But that's not the right. Oh yes, it's on that side. Do you love writing on cardstock? It's so enjoyable to me. I love writing on cardstock with felt tip pens or pencils, preferably softer than like 2B or softer. Just things I enjoy. Okay, so these are the things that were really exciting to me. Okay, for one thing, I had never thought, she's talking about how much wool, or how much string specifically, would be required to weave a sail. For example, Nordic ships were outfitted with wool sails. They were treated with something to help make them more catchy of wind. That is in fact the scientific term. But like, I've just never thought about what sails might be made out of. And then to think about them being like spun and woven by hand, and how big a sail is, and how many hours of labor would be required to create that sail. And then she also did this like little kind of aside where she was like, and maybe that's the reason that like that culture specifically was forced, but needed to like go out and like plunder other lands, is because they like, literally just needed more room for sheep so they could make more sails. And I was just like, that's an interesting way to think about that, which I had never thought about before. But again, like, just like, she even breaks it down by how many woman hours. And I don't know, I'm assuming that spinning in the Nordic tradition would have been women, because usually women are spinning, because that's just typically how it works out. And I think that's what she indicated as well. But like 10 years of women's hours would have been required to make a sail. That's bananas. And like, I think she actually does mention how many fleeces too, but I can't remember. I didn't write it down. But anyway, so that was like such a fun thing to be like, what? That like was fun to try to think about. Okay, so then the main other thing that I was really excited about was her discussion of color, and specifically her discussion of the color blue. Oh my gosh, y'all. Do you know about this? Have I been living in a cave? Blue is this magical color that is not named in languages until like way late in their language development. For example, the ancient Greeks did not have the color, they did not have a word for the color blue. They didn't have a concept of the color blue. What? Oh, so the battery overheated, but was a lovely excuse to go eat a piece of rye toast with cheese on it. Or toasted rye with cheese. That's actually more accurate. Rye bread, a little honey mustard, a piece of cheese, put it in the toaster oven. So I've been fortified, and the camera battery has been cooled. and we can redo our thing. Okay, so we're talking about unraveling, and I was talking about specifically about the colors discussion, and specifically about the blue. Okay, so let me just like, I'm just gonna read you verbatim because like, it's not very much. It's not very much, but it was just like, color is at least in part a social construct. I know, sounds bananas, right? What could be more universal, more immutable, more obvious than the yellow of the sun, the green of the trees? But consider this, the ancient Greeks did not see blue. They just didn't. Or more accurately, they saw it, but they didn't perceive it. In the Iliad and the Odyssey, Homer characterizes the sea as wine dark, a phrase he also uses to describe oxen. Or else he declares it to be purple, the same color he assigns to the sheep that Ulysses and his men hide beneath to escape the Cyclops cave. Honey, Homer labels it green, just as he does a human face struck with fear. Biblical Hebrew, classical Arabic, ancient Chinese, Tibetan, Vietnamese, Celtic, and Lakota are just a few of the languages that once had no separate concept for blue. Many described the sky with a word for green. Both colors were called Ao, in ancient Japan. By the 12th century, Midori emerged to indicate green, but it wasn't until after World War II that it truly became a distinct color. Even today, the go light on traffic signals in Japan is what is to Western eyes, including mine, plainly blue. The country's government claims it is just the bluest shade of green. She goes in to talk about briefly like that English speakers did not have the color orange until a couple of years after the fruit was introduced to Europe. Before that, we said yellow-red. Russians consider it bizarre that anyone could think light blue and dark blue are shades of the same color. To them, the two are as dissimilar as grass and sky. Because of that, in lab experiments, Russians are able to distinguish those blues more rapidly than people whose language doesn't differentiate between them. I believe also then also goes on to talk a little bit about lots of cultures describe colors like with different qualities. So for example, some cultures might say that a color shade is less important than whether it is dull or shiny. In parts of Africa, he adds blue or brown is less germane than whether a color is dry or damp, soft or hard, smooth or rough, mute or sonorous, joyful or sad. That's a Berkeley-based anthropologist in the late 60s who is talking about that, color perceptions amongst different cultures. Okay. What? How did I not know this? This is fascinating. It totally blew up my brain. I could not, again, this is literally, it's like, in her book, it is like 2, 4, not even 6 pages. And I have not been able to stop thinking about it since. Small aside, well, maybe not small aside, so this anthropologist was not doing it, but there actually have been, there was like a eugenics theme that talked about like, that non-Western cultures or whatever they decided in the minute they hated that wasn't a white person, would be that those people, not their culture, but that the actual human being was less developed because they could not see blue, or they could not differentiate blue. And so like it was said to be this like actual physical difference, but that has been very much disproven. I mean, other than the whole terribleness of everything around what the thought theory was. But it has also been, it's not a difference in like, for example, it's not a difference between how my eye perceives color versus how Homer's eye perceives color. It is literally that it is like a linguistic construct, and that universally, as languages develop, they almost always follow this same pathway. This is in The World According to Color, A Cultural History by James Fox. I have only read the chapter on blue. I might one day read the other chapters, but this blue thing is just really blowing up my brain. That like colors are developed pretty much in like linguistically are developed in this way: black and white, then red, and then green yellow or yellow green depending, and then finally blue. Blue is like one of the last colors to be perceived and communicated like linguistically. And again, I'm like, but the sky is blue and like water is blue. And I understand that like blue is not a frequent color, like of plants. Let's see. Less than 5% of plants and 8% of fruits are blue. And oftentimes when bird feathers are blue, they're not actually blue. That's just like how the light interacts with them. But then that also confuses me, because isn't that like how color is in general? Like, isn't it just all about how color? But whatever. There's like a mechanical structure that makes them blue versus like a pigment that is blue. Like you cannot extract blue color from a blue jay's feather. But that part still is kind of like a little bit clunky in my brain. I mean, I get it when you differentiate like that they cannot extract the blue from those things, but it still kind of messes up my brain. But anyway. And so like, but what it comes down to is that the things that we are seeing that are blue are not, you can't hold them. Like they are not tangible. They're really super abstract, right? Like, because you never reach a point of the sky that you could touch this blue. You like when you scoop up water, it's not blue in your hand. And so all these blues reside not in surfaces, but in depths, not in objects, but in the spaces between them. Because again, like you have like the point of the horizon is often blue, or like mountains in the distance are often blue. It's just so cool. I love it when you find out something like totally brand new in your 45-year-old almost self. And it is just so exciting. Right? I'm just like constantly just like thinking about it. Like, so then you start thinking about like, she mentioned specifically like that they have a couch in their house that I can't remember which way it goes, but like she thinks it's blue and he thinks it's green. Like they cannot, and my husband have had like these discussions about colors where I'm just like, no, that is clearly green. Like, what are you talking about? And so like this thought of like how much actual language might influence how we perceive color is, for example, there have been like color card studies, like, so just specifically how they talked about how she talked about, Peggy Ornstein talked about how that Russian folks are better at distinguishing different blues. Maybe because they call them two different colors, like they're not blue, there's whatever light blue is and whatever dark blue is, but it's not an actual shade. It's like two different things, like orange and yellow, I'm assuming. But so just like, so they've done color card studies with folks whose language does not support the word blue yet, like who they're not perceiving blue as, for example, the people who are creating the study, which I'm assuming is some European folks. And so like they give them like a color card that has what I would perceive as different greens with like a blue square thrown in. And when asked to point to the blue square, which again, to my eyes is very clearly blue, it's not just like a teeny bit difference. Folks who do not have blue as like a word or as a linguistic concept, I'm not even sure if I'm saying that correctly in terms of like linguistic concept, but like I'm not a linguist, but I think you understand what I mean. Like they can't differentiate that square is a different color, or maybe it's not a different color. I don't even know, right? Like they do not see a difference between that a noticeable difference between that square that I think is blue and the rest of the squares, which I think are some form of green. So then I'm like, again, like as a person who has been socialized as female, who has grown up with like hot coral lipstick and Bermuda sunset bronzer, or like, is my perception that I have like more color acuity, is it based in that? Is it based in because I have been through my socialization exposed to like more language to differentiate between colors? Is it because like as a gatherer in the hunter-gatherers, I had to be able to differentiate between like ripeness of berries better than somebody who was on the hunter side of things. I'm sure it's a combination of those things. But anyway, it's just, and again, like I perceive that blue and green are as different colors, but like there are a lot of people who don't perceive them as different colors. And it's not because they are what we would say is colorblind. There's no difference in the structure of their eye, their cones, the receptor cells in their eye. It's literally like this social construction of color and like their understanding of it. And then you start thinking about gender and like those constructs and how those are like, again, so blue, so green to my eyes. But what if I didn't have the word for blue? Or again, like this like way to hold this blue yarn, like it's so fun. I mean, it's also kind of stressful to me because it definitely gets into that weird, like, you know, nothing means anything. My perception is totally different than other people around me, and yet we're somehow navigating in the same space. What does that even mean? Like that, like but it's also fun. It's a fun brain exercise, which I am highly enjoying. So this book then goes on to talk more about, so this book is divided into chapters by color. So it starts with black, it has red, it has magenta, it has blue, it has white, it has green. And so, there is one of the, here we go. Do they show, I can't remember if it's in this one or, okay, maybe it's not in this one. So this is one of the, Horace Benedict de Saussure, who has a cyanometer, which was like a scientific tool to measure the blueness of the sky. But anyway, it talks about different, like developing different pigments, like how, like again, ultramarine was this like hugely expensive pigment, and how, for example, in Bacchus and Ariadne, Bacchus and Ariadne by Titian, like it's used so extravagantly in this painting, and it's used both in this garment but also as the blue, as this receding horizon, and how it ties, that blue ties this motion into, like it brings these two things together, and it's uniting all of these different elements through the color. And again, how unusual it was, and how and then they talk a little bit about Klein's monochromes. He made this pigment of blue in the, I want to say in the 20s, but now maybe I'm lying. Maybe it was later than that. Or even like how we didn't understand that the Earth would look blue from space. Like we just didn't, I mean, maybe a scientist knew that, but like we did not fundamentally understand that our world, which is largely water, but we just did not understand that it would look like a blue ball from space. Like I just take that for granted now, right? Because I've grown up with those images, but that was a surprise to people. Just so fun. So interesting. So anyway, I cannot recommend this book on one chapter, but I will. I do what I want. I mean, in this one chapter, I have lots of things underlined. Oh, so fun. Anyway, just exciting. Talking about just fun, right? But I think, okay, so I think that's all I should say. So again, that was The World According to Color, A Cultural History by James Fox, and Unraveling, What I Learned About Life While Shearing Sheep, Dyeing Wool, and Making the World's Ugliest Sweater by Peggy Ornstein. She does actually, she fully shears the sheep, y'all, which I thought was very exciting. Because, I mean, I always think about sheep to shawl. We think about specifically sheep to shawl, right? But, like, I never think about, like, as a human being being able to, like, shear a sheep. I mean, as a non-professional person. Okay, so I think that's all we're talking about today. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I hope you get excited about something this week. I hope you can see blue or green blue or whatever your word for it is in a new light, and you can appreciate that the sky is not something you can hold, and the water is not something you can hold, even though they're there. And I don't, again, I get real stressed out about like whether or not I'm successful, or whether or not I'm living up to my potential, or whether or not what I'm doing is right on a daily basis. But then also, Homer didn't realize what blue was. And I don't mean that in any way to like lessen Homer. But just to clarify. I mean, I don't think you thought I meant that, but like that is in no way. But like this is something that we have just like come up with in the last few years. Like what else were we just gonna come up with? Like if I had a way to explain infrared vision, would I somehow be able to see more colors on the spectrum of like, what? I still don't get the blue jay thing, man. The structure versus, I mean, it still blows my mind. No, it doesn't blow my mind. It still confuses me. But anyway, I guess that's why the water is blue, but it's not. But I'm like, but you can hold the blue jay. Okay, but whatever. I digress. I can make my mind a shawl around it. But my mind is not a sweater around this concept. It is just like loosely draped around this concept. And you know what? Why should I think I should be able to ask for more than that? I hope you can loosely drape your mind around some things. And I'll talk to you next time. Bye.